This conference will now be recorded.
Members, thanks for attending. Today is January 12th. It's right about 2:30 in the afternoon, and this is the first regular meeting of the Minnesota River Valley Transit Board meeting. My name's Todd Prafke, and as the Chief Administrator for the board, I'm calling the meeting to order. The first item of business is approval of the agenda. Is there anyone that would make a motion to approve the agenda? We have a motion by Marvin. Do we have a second?
Steve Grant will second that.
All right, Steve, thank you very much. All those in favor of the motion to approve the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? All right, thank you very much. The next item that I have on the agenda is election of officers. And so typically what we've done in the past, members, is that we have accepted a nomination for the chairperson, then the vice chair, and then give me just one moment.
Sure.
And then I believe it's the secretary or treasurer. Secretary? Treasurer. And so we've done it in that order: chairperson, vice chair, and treasurer. I will tell you the chairperson's job is to run the meetings. The vice chair's job is to run the meetings in the absence of the chair. And the treasurer has to sign off on documents on occasion, but it's not very regularly. The city of St. Peter takes care, and Sally, as you see on your screen, the finance director here in St. Peter, takes care of the financial matters for the board and for MRVT.
Todd?
Yes, ma'am.
You have to swear Emily in first since she's new?
Yes, you're exactly right. I'm sorry, I missed that one. So Emily, we can do that really officially if you would like, or certainly I can send you the documentation and we can go through that. If you just want to say I do at the end, typically what we do is we would have you raise your right hand and I'll read off the statement, and if you're in agreement, you would say I do. And then we would forward you the paperwork, you sign it and get it back to us, and off we go. Sound okay?
Sounds good.
All right, so raise your right hand if you would. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and that of the state of Minnesota, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of Minnesota River Valley Transit Board member, to which office I have been appointed, and I'll do that to the best of my judgment and ability. If you agree with that, please say I do.
I do.
All right, you're sworn in. Thank you very much, Emily. Thanks, Sally, for reminding me. All right, now let's get to election of officers. So typically, again, the first one that we have is chairperson. The board has not established any formal or informal rules that I'm aware of relative to it, switching back and forth between the Sueur or St. Peter or anything like that. So it really is up to the board to make decisions as to how you want this to move forward.
Mr. Chair Temporaries, I'd like to make a recommendation to have Marvin from the Sueur City Council be our chair for the upcoming year.
All right, is there a second to that motion?
Emily will second that motion.
All right. Do we have any other nominations? Do we have any other nominations? Since we don't have any additional nominations, I will call the vote. All those in favor of providing and nominating Marvin Sullivan as the chairperson of MRVT board will respond, and I'll call off the roll call, please. Steve?
Aye.
Marvin?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
All those have approved, and so it's unanimous vote for Marvin to be the chairperson. All right, Marvin, you are up. And so the next one that we have, Marvin, would be the vice chair.
All right, take nominations for the vice chairperson. I'll go ahead and move that Steve be the vice chairperson.
Emily, we need your help.
Sure, all right, I'll go ahead and second that.
All right, thank you, thank you.
My
All right, any
apologies, I thought that Wayne here was a member as well. Am I incorrect in that?
Right,
Right.
Wayne is the compliance manager, so he's staff.
Okay, well, hello, Wayne.
Hi, sorry about that.
I'm
that's
sorry,
okay.
Emily, I thought you guys have met before. Sorry about that.
I don't believe so, but that's
Okay.
just fine, thanks.
All right, any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Todd, do you want to go ahead and take a roll?
I sure will. Marvin,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
All right, the motion passed. Looking for nominations for treasurer. I think at this point it leaves us with one option. So I'll go ahead and make the motion that Emily be our treasurer.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
All right, any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Todd, do you want to take a roll?
Steve,
Aye.
Marvin,
Aye.
Emily.
Aye.
Todd, we already did the approval of the agenda, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I need, looking for an approval of the minutes and disbursements from the November 10th meeting, the December 8th meeting, and disbursements from November of 2020 and December of 2020.
Mr. Chair, typically we'd handle those as each individual items, so three
Okay.
separate motions.
Okay, so look for a motion for the November 10th regular meeting.
So move, Mr. Chair. This is Steve Graham.
Todd,
Emily
I'll
will
second.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll go ahead and second that. Any further discussion about November 10th? Todd, do you want to do a roll or do you want to just do a one favor?
I'll do the roll for you, Mr. Chair. So
Okay.
Marvin,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Emily.
Aye.
All right, looks like the motion passed 3-0. Looking for a motion for approval of the special meeting from December 8th.
Emily will so move.
Steve Graham will second, Mr. Chair.
All right, any further discussion? Todd, go ahead and take the roll.
Marvin,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Emily.
Aye.
All right, the motion passed 3-0. I'm looking for approval of the disbursements for November. Is this November and December, Todd, or November through December?
It is listed in there. Sally, maybe you remember off the top of my head so I can look. I cannot remember the date.
And December.
Okay, so looking, and we can do that as one motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, looking for approval for November and December of 2020 for disbursements.
This is Steve Graham. Move the approval, Mr. Chair.
Okay, motion by Grams.
And Emily will second that motion.
Okay, got a second. Any further discussion about the disbursements? Todd, go ahead with the roll.
Steve,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
Marvin.
Aye. Looks like the motion passed. Do we have any visitors today? Does not look like it.
No,
We
we do
don't
not.
have, we don't have any old business. So Todd, new business 2021 fairs.
So, Mr. Chair and members, there's information included in your packet, starting on page, sorry, I'm flipping through there, starting on page 11. So I think the upshot of the information that we provided to you, Mr. Chair and members, is that, as you may recall at a previous meeting, you established new fares to take effect on March 1st. At that time, it was our best information that CARES money and DOT money to pay for the operation of MRVT, where you were able to support no fares, would expire on February 28th. And so March 1st would have been the first day that you needed fares to be able to meet the financial needs of your operation. Since that time, we've had clear correspondence from the Minnesota Department of Transportation, and they have indicated that they believe they will have funding and are planning for funding through the end of 2021. So based on your previous discussion, based on the analysis that Sally and your team has continued to do, you have the ability to provide for no dial-a-ride fares for all of, essentially now, the 2021 year. I mentioned that as being just dial-a-ride fares. As you can see in your documentation on page 13 and then on the proposed resolution on page 14, you do have other general classifications of fares. Last time we talked about it, there had been an indication that you would want to have, and ultimately where you ended up was no student or no preschool fares either. Those ultimately ended up through the end of February as being zero. But you established what I would call half price fares for things like Gustavus and the Gus Bus contract, and for the hourly rates where we have these one-off contractual rides that we provide. Maybe for, it's an event at Sueur at the community center we provide rides for. Maybe it's for a wedding someplace and they're ferrying people back and forth, and that's charged on an hourly basis. I will mention that, to be very clear, related to the Gustavus, the basis for $39 is at half price. That half price is made up of two primary components, one of which is bus and driver, and the second of which is dispatcher, because that's required for Gus Bus. For your one-offs, there are occasions when you don't necessarily use a dispatcher, or you use the dispatcher that's on duty for Gus Bus if Gus Bus is operational at that time. So that's why the rate is established in the proposed resolution on page 14 as $25 an hour, no dispatch. If dispatch was in place, your team, Wayne and Sandy, would figure out the cost for that, and that would be a cost that we would charge half to the contracting entity. I think that's the plan that we've utilized in the past, and it seemed to work out at least reasonably well. So again, we're able to do that. I will make one other mention that I indicated in the memo that some of this dollars from March 1st to the end of December could be CARES funding. Melanie from DOT indicated to Wayne very clearly in an email that it was not CARES funding, it was state funding. I don't know how they received the money, so I think there's some CARES pass-through or some other revenue stream, but they wanted us to make sure that we were clear that it was DOT resources, and so we're really thankful for that. Frankly, to some extent, it might not matter where those resources come from. It's wonderful that we can provide that service to the folks that utilize MRVT. I don't know, members, if there's anything else that I can provide, or Wayne or Sally, if you want to chime in on this, I'd certainly be interested if you have anything to add.
Any questions for Todd or anybody else?
Mr. Chair, this is Steve Graham. I got a question, Todd, relative to the fair funding for 21. Can the money that is being designated for fares be utilized in a different manner, or does it have to be utilized for fares only?
Steve, I think that the intent of the state is to keep fares low. The grant agreement, I don't believe, says you must use it for fares. I will tell you, though, that if you don't use it for fares, it is likely that when they provide an audit and analysis of the system, that they will not give you all the funding that's promised. Really what they're trying to say is that they want to help you use your resources to provide free fares through 2021, and it's based on your total cost of operation. they're not, I think it's important to note that they're not buying tickets. They're covering your cost of operation and want that to move through to users.
Okay. All right. So I can't recall without looking back at prior minutes, but are we open on schedule this year to get a new bus in 21?
Let me have Wayne answer that one because, as you know, we were hoping to get a couple. Wayne, can you tell the story about that one?
We were denied a bus on a contract of 2020, sorry. We applied for multiple buses on a 2021 grant contract. We were approved for one. So that order process will begin in late spring into the early summer, and we would anticipate delivery of that bus late in 2021 or early 2022. So yes, we have a bus, but it's a ways out before we'll see it.
Okay, so the second question I have, Mr. Chair, is that an 80-20 split then, Wayne?
That would be the worst is 80-20. I'm trying to remember if there was, I believe it's 80-20, Steve, but I would have to go back and look more deeply to remember the detail.
Okay. All right.
Sally,
Yeah,
I think you were nodding your head, Sally. You believe that it's an 80-20 split.
Yeah, the prior year it was 90-10 and now it went to 80-20.
all right.
So members, the only caveat that I have for that is you may recall at your last meeting, your DOT rep, Melanie, had said that she would lobby for us to be considered a rural transit system. So that would make our split 85-15. We have not heard back on that I'm aware of. That could change the split. But I do want to make you aware, and Sally, you probably know this number pretty much, the kind of rough estimate off the top of your head. Your cash position is in really pretty good shape. So whether it would be an 85 or an 80 or a 90, you certainly do have the cash reserves to be able to absorb that amount for the bus.
Yes. Yep.
Can I add into that, Todd? But capital purchases are always 80-20. The 85-15 is an operating grant different. So she's campaigning to get us set up for 85-15 on the 2022-2023 operating contract.
Okay, thank you, Wayne, for that clarification. That's great.
All right. Thanks, Wayne. Thanks.
The other one that I'd add to that, Mr. Chair and members, is that as a part of your budget process, we did talk about what happened if you got into a pinch and you really needed that second new bus. We do have a plan in place that would allow for issuance of an equipment certificate to allow for that to occur, and then you would pay it off over a few years. And your cash position allows you to be in that position if you really needed to. I would expect that to come from staff, and I would expect that you would be really hard on us to make sure that we could demonstrate a need very clearly. And by that, I mean from a financial perspective, what 2 or 3 other buses are just killing us on maintenance, and that we'd be better off to make that change.
Perfect. Any further conversation or questions? If not, I'd go ahead and look. Oh,
Mr.
go ahead.
Chair, Todd, I have one just point of clarification on page 14. This may be the error that you already mentioned, but in that last paragraph before the list of fees, it lists December 31st, 2020, and I believe that should be 2021. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's correct. Under the now therefore paragraph.
Yes.
That's correct, ma'am.
Okay. All right. I think that was my only question.
Okay. If not, then I'm assuming you want a motion for this resolution, Todd?
Yes, sir.
So I'd go ahead and look for a motion to approve the resolution as documented with the revision to state December 31st, 2021.
Emily will so move.
Steve Graham will second.
Already got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? If not, Todd?
Steve,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
Marvin.
Aye. Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, members, before you leave this one, we'll start promoting this very soon. We'll send information to Jasper. He and I had a discussion earlier in the day, so we'll send some information. It'll start to hit hot sheet. And at the next council meeting in St. Peter, we'll start to mention it. I'm not sure how you deal with it, Marvin, in the Sueur with Jasper, but that'll kind of be our mode moving forward to make sure that people are aware that this is going on.
Yep, same way. Perfect. We'll move on to reports. Operations manager. Wayne, is that you today?
Well, I suppose I can wear both hats. I should have brought a couple of different baseball caps to put on, but as far as operations goes, the only thing I know of that we need to add is we have completed a hiring process for a new full-time driver. And that driver appointment was made last night at the council meeting, and he is actually out training today. The new driver is Grant Nelson. He has worked as a summer employee at Public Works for a couple of years, and he is familiar with streets in town, which has helped us immensely already just today. So we're actually on track. He might be out doing service on his own tomorrow with radio contact with the other experienced drivers and dispatch. So things are progressing quite well with him just in the first day. So that's a positive. We are considering adding a part-time yet, but we're still trying to shake out what kind of hours are available. It's difficult to offer someone a job without knowing exactly what the hours might be. So from the operations manager perspective, I think that's about all we have to add, unless Todd has something.
Mr. Chair, members, I just mentioned to you that included in your packet, we sent you some data relative to usage. We're trying to do that on a more regular basis. I would encourage you not to get too caught up in that because COVID has changed this a lot, but we want you to see the data so that you know where things are at. I do have to mention this one, and as you may or may not know, the city of St. Peter has regular meetings with Nicollet County. We have liaison committee meetings. And so at the last, and transit is always one of those, and looking for cooperative efforts, certainly with True Transit. And I do want to mention that one of the pieces of data that they shared with us was their cost per ride. And certainly they have a very, very different structure than we have, and their ridership is very different. But as I recall, the cost per ride was in excess of 30 times what your cost per ride is estimated at. You can't really draw exact comparisons to that, but I think it's fantastic that they're utilizing that data and that we continue to have these discussions about where can we work together. An example of that is corridor service. And so they have picked up some ridership, essentially doing what you used to do as that corridor service. So I think that's worked out reasonably well during COVID time. And so that's all I'd have, Mr. Chair, under that additional operations report.
Perfect, thank you.
So I'm sorry, I should follow the agenda. We are not going to start promoting RM pays though. Since you're at zero fare, we're not going to start promoting that. We're not quite ready to do that, so that'll wait until probably the third or fourth quarter of 2021.
Okay. Any questions on the operations?
Yeah, this is Steve Grimes, Mr. Chair. Wayne, did you have any other applicants, or did you only have the one?
We had 3 applicants for the full-time position. And one of the 3 also, since we had posted the position for full-time and part-time, actually applied to be considered for both part-time and full-time. So we had a total of 3 applicants. We interviewed all 3.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right, any further questions? If not, Wayne, do you want to do your compliance report?
Sure, thank you. As Todd mentioned, we won't be promoting the RM pay, even though once it is finalized and rolled out in working form, in the background, it will be working even though people aren't aware of it. What I mean by that is once we enable that feature in the software, it creates accounts for all of the passengers that ride after that. So we'll be gaining ground even though we aren't charging fares. And since we're on the topic of route match, they have what they believe is it finally worked out the bug that was in there that was giving us a lot of headaches. I'm scheduled to have a conference call with our project manager tomorrow morning to load the new application onto one of the tablets so we can run a trial on the street in production. So hopefully that will happen early next week when I can figure out which tablet to put it in and which driver to saddle with it, I guess is the way to put it. So other than that, I mentioned the new driver and the training. That'll roll along. We'll have that monitored over the next week. And I fully expect that by Tuesday of next week is our hope to go back to where we have our full schedule back on the road. We had to curtail a few hours here in St. Peter due to lack of drivers back in late October. I don't think it's affected our rides at all, but we did cut back a little bit, and that should go back to full number of hours on Tuesday.
Perfect. Any questions for Wayne on the compliance? If not, Todd, it's you.
I'd turn it over to Sally. Sally, if you want to talk about money just a little bit, or any things related to budget that you might have, and then I'll follow up with one or two other very small items.
Yep, we're just closing up the year. There'll be an audit in, preliminary audit starts in February, early February, and then April. And again, in May, they'll be here to do the audit of MRVT along with the city audit. They do it at the same time. Right now, we look like we're, being reimbursed 100% from March to the end of the year. Money's in good shape. Right now, I have a reserve balance of about 170,000. So we got to look at that and see what else still has to be paid out. If there's some buses, some charges and the rest. But right now, revenues, we're down. We knew that. And expenses were just hanging right in line. We've had some reduced hours and the rest, and some overtime. But overall, we're doing just fine.
Sally or Todd, we're using the same auditor as we did this past year, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Just want to make sure.
MMKR, Sally was really on the ball this time and did quiz our auditor about whether, since we're on a 2-year budget cycle, really driven by the grant cycle for DOT, how they've wanted to change. Do we have to be on a yearly audit cycle? And I think they told Sally, yes, I'm afraid so. So anyway, we'll still, even though we're on a 2-year budget cycle, we'll still be doing that on a yearly basis and a 2-year grant cycle.
Perfect. Anything else?
All right. The only other thing that I have is that, as you might have seen from the data, your ridership continues to, it's strange because of COVID, but really ridership has increased as school openings and closings and all of those things related to COVID occur. We'll see some vacillation occur. That's also true with preschool services that we provide. And so I think Wayne and Sandy have done an excellent job of keeping as much on the road as we can on the road. We have not had anyone that has been denied service over the last couple of months. So that's always a good thing. We have a process and a policy for that as well, but we're in good shape. We have struggled a little bit, and we talked about this last time, but I do want to mention this one, and maybe Wayne could chime in just a little bit as well. Because we are on free fares, we do have some segment of the population that is interested, and I'll use St. Peter as an example. I know, Marvin, you kind of know this area as well, of getting a free ride from Family Fresh to Family Dollar. And as you know, that's like a block and a half. And so on occasion, that causes us some unusual challenges relative to the amount of rides we can give within a certain period of time. And we are trying to accommodate those as best we can. But on occasion, that causes us a little bit of grief, especially when we're taking somebody to Kasota and back. And the grief comes in, what do you mean I have to wait 10 minutes for a ride, as an example? And so, but I think we're handling that. We have had a couple of folks that have been, Wayne, what's the term that we use when they don't show up for the ride after they've called for it?
No shows.
Thank you. We've had a few I should have figured that, no shows, but we have a policy and a process for that as well. And so I don't believe that we've told anyone that they are suspended for a while, but we have certainly alerted a couple of folks that that is a possibility if they continue to be no shows. So I wanted you to be aware of those types of things. And Mr. Chair, that's all I have, unless Wayne, you have something else to add on top of that?
I just want to mention that don't lose sight, if you look at the numbers of rides, the 2019 numbers, Gustavus, and we stopped giving rides for Gustavus back in, I think it was March or maybe early April. And it wasn't unusual to have Gustavus account for upwards around 2,500 rides per month. So as you compare 20 and 21, realize that segment of our rides isn't even there right now. So that one segment really changes the numbers.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, this is Steve Graham. Wayne, relative to Gustavus, have you had any discussions with them regarding what 21 may hold regarding the Gus bus?
I have not, Steve. That's on my agenda or on my list. Popped up on my reminders yesterday, I think, to get a hold of Megan Rubley and ask her what their plans are. My guess is until we see vaccinations up where we can realistically put a load in quotation marks on a bus at a time, we don't have enough buses or enough staff to provide social or physical distancing and operate for them. But I have not heard anything from them since the beginning of the school year. So as we get now, J-term is in session, and we'll have the regular spring semester coming up. I do need to get a hold of Megan and get some answers.
Yeah, I don't recall what the last information I read regarding their school attendance, whether it's hybrid or what. But I know that the school district, I believe, aren't they starting open school now this week, Todd?
Yeah, that's correct. And specifically to Gustavus, they do have students back on campus. Right now, however, it is J-term. The last mass testing they did there indicated that they had, other than folks that had already been identified as a positive COVID test in quarantine, they had no new. My guess is, though, and I know Wayne will talk with Megan about this, but my guess is they are unlikely to do something for this spring semester. They're likely looking at fall before they're interested in going back to services.
Okay. All right. Regarding COVID, I just wanted to say there were no COVID situations over Parkview Manor all of 2020, Todd. So
that's fantastic. How fortunate for all the folks there and everyone. That's wonderful.
Yep. Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. Look for a motion for adjournment then.
This is Steve Grants, Mr. Chair. So move.
All right. I get a motion.
Emily will second.
All right. A motion will second. Any further discussion?
I have one question, Mr. Chair. Has there been any discussion about filling the one spot yet that for Mark leaving?
Do you want me to speak to that, Todd, or do you want
Yeah,
to?
if you would, Mr. Chair, that might be great. Yeah, thank you.
Steve, we've actually got a new councilman that was appointed to this board. Unfortunately, he wasn't at our city council meeting last night, and we didn't have communication with him as to whether he was coming today or not. So hopefully next month he'll be here, or next meeting he'll be here. If not, I know we do actually have an open council seat right now that we're hoping to have filled by the end of the month. And we'll be shuffling a few people on our boards and committees. So if nothing works out, we'll definitely get him filled in with somebody else.
Okay, thanks, Marvin.
Yep. All right, I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Looking at the calendar, it looks like next meeting will be March 9th.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Wayne.
Yeah, I got to thinking about that and I did a quick scroll here.
Yeah.
Perfect. So
All
March
right,
9th,
thank you. Here now, I'm going to end the recording.